Welcome to Real Estate in the Digital Age, or the RETA podcast. Real estate entrepreneurs Ryan Poole and Ryan Beckett bring you new content every week, reporting on market trends, industry innovations, cutting-edge real estate technology, and perspectives from the field. The future of real estate is here. Are you ready?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Estate in the Digital Age, the RETA podcast. Really excited about this one, as always, with my good friend Ryan Poole, and we have Jim Brown. Do you want to do a little intro and lead it in with it?
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to have Jim here. I've been in real estate, as you know, Ryan, for over, 20 years, used a lot of different title companies. And what Jim's doing here with technology and the title is very cutting edge. So we're glad to have you here on the show, Jim.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? I know you have an amazing experience, a heck of an entrepreneur, and a great attorney, so many great things. Why don't you share a little bit with the audience?
Oh, man, my head's getting big. So where did it start? College, got out, got my general contractor's license, youngest licensed GC in Massachusetts back in the day, right?
Wow.
Dinosaurs roamed the land, and I had a GC license.
Fantastic.
So came down to Florida pretty early in my career and immediately got into real estate. I was obviously in real estate in Massachusetts, came down here, worked for a developer, and then started working in transactional work for a big area farm. And from there, went to law school, got my degree, and the rest is history. Went into private practice about 20 years ago.
Okay.
And enjoyed it ever since. Done a myriad of things with the practice, but everything is real estate related, real estate transactions. And quite honestly, Title Leap was born out of frustration. So I was watching the way people were working, like we were talking about before the show. You have a title issue, you got to call your title office, and the next thing you know, you're on perpetual hold, or you're looking for somebody to come back from a closing table or something. And I always tell people, the worst chain of events is when when the seller's agent chooses the title company, and a buyer has an issue, and the buyer has to call the buyer's agent has to call the seller's agent has to call the title company, and the title company, that person's sitting in a closing, and they have to wait for them to call them back, and then it all reverses out. So Title Leap, that was the frustration that gave birth to Title Leap. About 5 years ago, we started wireframing something out, gaming it out. 4 developers later, and a couple of in-house people, not the least of which is Alex now joining our team, and we have a viable product I'm proud of.
That's awesome. And what's the feedback? Feedback's been great, I hear.
Feedback has been phenomenal. I was with an agent over the weekend. She helps me do a lot of stuff, a lot of finishes for my personal properties, my personal investments. And she says she was coming unglued Saturday. I said, why? She said, because I was in Title Leap trying to find this file, and I needed a survey for the realtor and another transaction. And then she said, I realized it wasn't with you. It wasn't in Title Leap. You got to get Title Leap into the hands of other title agent shops, other closing agencies.
Yep.
And she said that would just make things so easy. And so we are one of the only softwares that do have a feature. So Title Leap is agnostic. So any title agent can run Title Leap regardless of the software they run as their primary software. We're middleware. And so Title Leap is agnostic in that respect. And so we're the only platform that can run agnostically with other softwares in multiple shops. So if you have a deal pending in Orlando at Acme Title, and you have a deal in Universal Title in wherever, you can go to one location and see your status of your file and access your file data.
Wow.
Fantastic. And Ryan and I being realtors, we understand how 2 ships pass in the night. There's a lot of balls dropped, things that fall through the cracks.
Left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
That's right. So how would you explain to sellers and buyers how that would benefit them too? It just makes their realtor more on the game. So I know that it must trickle down.
Oh, it's absolutely a benefit to buyers and sellers, because the reality is, title's a black box, right? We can all admit that.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what title agents do. You
It is a mystery
You throw your
sometimes.
contract into the black box. It pops out 60 days later with about another $5,000 in fees. No one's quite sure what we do.
Right.
So we've actually had older clients that told us that they never contacted us, right? So the benefit is our phone doesn't ring. The immediate benefit is our phone doesn't ring. But when you get the reports from the satisfied buyers and sellers where they say, we did a million closings in the course of our life, and my wife and I would go home at night and we'd watch the the status bar advance on Title Leap, and we would feel like we knew somebody was on our file, and if we had to send somebody a message, we could do it in the app, and they would respond to us, and it was very satisfying, and we wouldn't even talk until the closing came up.
Fantastic. So you're a desktop platform and you have an app as part of it as well?
We don't have an app, we have a web app. We had an app in the App Store. App Store apps can be very cumbersome if you're trying to make changes to your platform.
Got it.
So we were much more satisfied with the web-based app and having that ability to be agile.
That's awesome. So are you scaling it out to other title companies?
We are.
That's
We
awesome.
have our first pilot on board, and we have our first contract signed with a enterprise level underwriter, and they have legacy software that they want to provide a mobile presence to. So we are going to be the mobile interface for a legacy software, a big legacy software.
It is, and I've used it. It's almost like a contract management system, Ryan. That it can actually, you can see where your deal's going, your time frames, when the inspection period's up, when the, all the other contingencies are up, right there in real time through the app. It actually is pretty amazing.
It's making my day, man.
It is. No, I've used a lot of different title companies. Like I said, I would probably say 20 or 30 different ones throughout my career at least.
Sure.
And this is the first one that actually I said, wow, this is brings tremendous transparency into the transaction for everybody involved.
So when I started the journey, I'm looking at these title transactions. It was me and a paralegal. Now we have a staff of 18. It was me and a paralegal. And I'm looking at this thing like this. There's got to be a better way, because now we're adding 2 paralegals and 3 paralegals and another attorney, and nobody knows what's going on. Left hand, right hand issue all the time. And so we came up with a file system where if you could at least locate the file, you could figure out what was going on. Well, that only lasted so long. So we wanted to take that digital, and that's how Title Leap came to be.
That's great. So I interviewed for my firm, Bit Realty, potentially hiring a transaction coordinator. Do you think that changes the need for a transaction coordinator, or it amplifies the efforts of a transaction coordinator?
So realtors tell me a couple of different scenarios. So some realtors say, I'm paying a TC fee, and now I don't pay it anymore because I love the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
Other realtors say, I'm not picking up an app, I'm not doing a thing on my phone except for making phone calls.
Right.
And so their TC uses Title Leap, and what happens is the TC tells us, I was managing 30-something transactions now, but I can manage 3 times that in Title Leap as I could on my own, no problem. And so they take on realtors and TCs steer files towards us. We have one downtown agency that steers a lot of files to us because the TC goes to Title Leap religiously and uses it to its full value.
Wow, and just to elucidate that point for the audience, my firm's Bit Realty. I describe ourselves as tech forward, and a lot of things we do is in fact tech forward.
Oh, you guys are.
We are, yeah. But I will say,
you're a legend.
Thank you. After talking to you, I've been kind of Flintstoning this in a way because I'm working on HOA approvals and I'm keeping up with it. Let alone all my agents. I definitely got to try this.
Yeah, we have a broker profile that you can access all your agent critical dates, and we don't rely on the agents to enter critical dates, right? There were 4 principles of Title Leap, and one of them was critical dates. There was communication, critical dates, a status bar, and documents. A bunch of other features have cropped in, but those were our 4 pillars. And so what happens is with agents, and it came up just this morning, love realtors. We don't live without realtors.
Right.
I want to give all the wind in the sails to the realtors I can, but there are a lot of realtors that aren't as sophisticated as others, and so they're arguing over critical dates. And so I said, listen, stop the madness.
Yeah.
I'm going to broadcast the critical dates. I'll take the bullet for the team if I'm wrong. We're rarely wrong. And so it came up this morning that they were arguing over the effective date, and one realtor was under the belief, because it says in the contract, executed and delivered, and everybody knows when it was executed because the date's in the contract, but who knows when it's delivered unless you're the buyer's agent, you're the seller's agent, unless you guys talk to each other and directly and say this is when it was delivered, and then draft an addendum. There's a little rule in law called the Four Corners Rule, and if you can't read the date in the contract and there has to be this other story relayed, it doesn't apply. So we look at the contract and we advertise whatever's in the contract.
That's fantastic. And, we have audience all over the place. We're obviously based here in South Florida. But would you mind explaining to the audience why critical dates are potentially even more critical in Florida? And I'll tell you why. I have a lot of
Oh, I can come up
clients.
with some great examples.
I have a lot of clients that come from New York, for example, and they don't fully understand the language that says time is of the essence. So if they send out a wire at 4:45 p.m. on the day, you'll explain it better than I will. But if it doesn't hit till the next morning, they're in breach of contract,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Technically.
Yep. So perfect example of why critical dates are so important. So I had a realtor I worked for over a big firm up in North Palm, and they were doing out of their typical practice, they were doing a commercial deal. It was a light commercial deal, but they're not familiar with the commercial contract, and so the inspection period came and went, and it was a little dental office, and they didn't communicate to their client that they missed their inspection date, and the client calls them a couple days after the IP and says, "Hey, we want to pull out." And my client and my realtor says, "Oh my God, what do I do?" We've received every deal of his since because that particular deal wasn't in Title Leap. And so in commercial transactions, typically the buyer chooses the title agent. So they chose another title agent. His client chose another title agent. No, I'm sorry. In this particular transaction, seller chose it. My realtor represented the buyer. Seller chose the title. It wasn't us. And he made sure that he has sent every deal to us since, because he did many Title Leap deals prior where he got the text and the email that said your inspection period ends in 2 days. Make sure you've educated your client.
Wow. And to that point, the reason why that could have been such a oops for the realtor is after that due diligence period, that inspection period lapsed, their whole security deposit is up for that risk, right? It's hard.
And here's the thing, Ryan. When these
Hard lesson learned.
Oh,
hard
it really
deposits,
is.
all of
when
it.
these time frames are coming up, right, through Title Leap, and one thing I like about it, not only updated on the app, which you can see in real time, they send you a text message too.
Text and email.
Automated text and email, correct both of each trigger on each time frame, and giving you a heads up on all of them.
Wow.
And so we'll go out on, right, so we're a small, agile firm. There's years and years of experiences baked into this formula. It's not that we were tech people coming in from the outside, seeing the title was ripe for the picking. We built this thing from the inside out based on experience. And so we'll take chances because we're small and we're not corporate giants that other agencies won't, other title softwares won't take. And we've taken chances that really benefit the community that you won't find in other softwares.
Wow. That's really interesting. You know what I have found, I'm curious your opinion. We obviously love tech. It's the, it's the underpinning of the whole podcast we do and what we do every day. But what I found is I started in real estate in 2005. And back then it was more wet signatures. They came to my office, shook my hand, we went through the pages, we initialed it, whatever. Now with these e-signing softwares, which are great, I have clients all over the place. I need to set up a form for an HOA application, the FAR bar contract itself. But in my experience, I find that sometimes people don't appreciate the gravity of a contract because they could be pulled over in their car, flick their finger a few times, and now they're under contract. And sometimes I feel like the appreciation that it's a legally binding contract is a little diluted because of the tech.
Gravity of their acts does not resonate when you're not reading this thing and initialing the bottom of each page with a pen, and that's absolutely the case. And so I answer a lot of phone calls for James Brown Law, the law firm. We've got a battery of attorneys with us now that are lightening my load because so I can focus more on tech, but I still get calls and I talk to people that say, oh, I only signed it on my phone. It doesn't really control. It doesn't really apply. It's not really legal.
I've heard the iPad excuse. I've heard the iPad excuse for sure.
And we've got people that tell me, oh, I didn't sign that. So-and-so did. I gave it to them. I never read it. I mean, they're free. They freely admit that they do these things. And in my office, we'll hire people and they'll say, oh, just give me your username and password and I'll sign it for you. And, we explain that that's not the way it can happen.
Right.
So there is a general misconception, absolutely, in the signature world that if it's signed on your phone, regardless of real estate or anything else, it doesn't apply. And everybody's seen those. You agree to the terms and conditions statement, and nobody reads the terms and conditions. Well, I read the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
And so some of that stuff that people agree to, the terms and conditions in Facebook, I could tell you examples, excerpts that would scare you. And
they can change them over time. That's what the crazy thing is.
And they reserve the right to change them anytime they want.
I know.
Unilaterally.
So it is. So people are listening. They might be a little bit confused here, Jim. You're a heck of an entrepreneur. So you have James Brown Law, right? You have New Path Title, which is the title company, and then you have Title Leap. I mean, that's basically 3 businesses that you're running.
And there's a couple more.
And there's a couple more, which we can talk about later on the podcast. Which
Yeah,
is
we've
awesome.
got the law firm, we've got the title company, and we've got the technology company. And there's another little fledgling technology company within we call it Legal IP Tech. So Legal IP Tech controls Title Leap, and then there's a little fledgling lending company in there. And then
Wow.
we also have we build race boats, electric race boats.
Yeah,
we
I want to talk a little bit about that a little bit later on. So this is the Reddit podcast, Real Estate in the Digital Age. Let me ask something. There's a lot of disruptors too coming out with blockchain and title. You see them coming down the pipe. Proppies one. We've seen some others. How do you feel? Blockchain, NFTs. How are they going to affect title in the future? What do you see for that? And have you studied that? Do you understand some of that?
If I may be so bold,
I love it.
that is the future.
Yeah.
Right. The stuff that we've done is antiquated. It's a thing of the past. Now we've got to figure out what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go through these kind of radical swings until we hone in on our mark. But we're getting there, right? We're seeing this crazy volatility with the crypto markets, but we're going to find this true utility value, and we're going to hone in on that. And so you're going to see less ups and less downs, and title is going to be the same way, right? We're going to experiment with some technologies. There's some really cool companies that are moving the needle. States Title merged with North Atlantic Title, Natick, and they formed DOMA.
Okay.
And DOMA's breaking some pretty cool, I don't want to name drop in case we're going to offend anybody out there, but they're dropping some pretty cool tech that's the future. Now, it's not true title tech. It relies on a lot of collateral data to make decisions, to execute certain transactions in a narrow, specifically lending, not necessarily title from the purchase and sale perspective, but it's coming and it's working. So
I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
historically, somebody went. I hate to interrupt.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
so
go.
passionate about this.
Yeah,
stuff,
keep
but
going, keep
Historically,
going.
somebody went to the clerk of the courts, right?
Yes.
And I did this myself when I was young. I'm one of the last people probably still doing title that did this. And you thumb through the card index and you find your property and you pull your cards out and you make some notes and you go back to your office, right?
Find your chain of title.
And so exactly. And so today we can find all kinds of data that's accessory to those facts, and then just easily mine that collateral data and not have to do the historical. And so we're going to migrate in that direction. We're still going to do typical title, but we're also going to migrate in a direction that relies on a lot of other data points outside of title.
It's interesting you said that because I've thought of a similar analogy. It's like we used to be on the Dewey Decimal System for information, and now we have Google, right? And it's created a way better search results. That's why they overtook Yahoo for a lot of reasons. And for the audience that understands or knows title, but may not understand it to the level of detail that you do. So the basic objective is that does a search, and basically the policy is ensuring the buyer, right, that if there was a claim on title for whatever reason, something in a construction lien, something that didn't come up in the original title search, that they're protected, right? Is that the base way that you would explain it to the lay people at home?
Yeah. I'll break it down even a little further. Who has the biggest risk in 70, 80% of all real estate transactions?
The lender.
Exactly. So a buyer would love to think they're the one getting protected by the title insurance policy, and they are. We have a title claim we're filing today where it protects the buyer, and the lender has no idea. But when the lender lends, right, they're extending credit. They know nothing about the property. They know nothing about the parties. They want this objective third-party person to say, I guarantee if you have to foreclose this loan, no one will stand in your path. And that's basically all title insurance is. It's guaranteeing that if the lender has to foreclose or a buyer has to sell, they're not going to have any hiccups, any issues when they go to resell or foreclose. So what the title agent's job is to exactly what you said, examine the chain of title, the record chain of title, and it's all referenced by name and legal description, and then ensure that the sale or foreclosure can happen seamlessly.
Right. And for people that don't understand the pain point, and they're like, "Oh, Ryan Poole and Ryan Beckett are talking about blockchain again. What's the benefit of that?" If I showed up at your doorstep of your home and I had a briefcase full of cash, more than you would ever dream of selling your house for, how long would it probably take us to settle that deal out?
Typically,
5 days?
Well, no, a little bit more. The
More.
big holdup is the municipal lien search companies.
I see.
So there's the public record where everything goes that has a lien and has a book and page number. That's the public record. Then you have, which tends to be the slow spoke in the wheel, the municipality who has to report to you on issues that haven't made it to the public record yet.
Right.
So the municipality has their own mini record, and so they tend to be a little bit slower. And then you also have a lender, and sometimes the lenders are, but they're not typically the holdup, but they can be the holdup. Some of these disorganized lenders that have purchased and sold the notes many times,
Yep.
sometimes that can be cumbersome.
Understood.
It is. I work in the secondary mortgage market. People don't realize their loans can be sold multiple times too, and there's a chain of sale for loans as well that
Yes.
has to be researched as well.
There's a chain of title to the notes. And then the biggest holdup is, and I'm going to take a step back for a second, right? So in the ideal world, you're a seller, you're a buyer, you don't come to the table to the last minute, but you've been contemplating the sale for a while. So you would really, in the ideal world, want to start your title work long in advance of the sale.
Oh, interesting. I don't even hear realtors recommending that.
Well,
Yes.
That's great.
So in the ideal world, you and your significant other are contemplating this sale. The first thing you do is scrub title, right? So if you have any hanging unsatisfied mortgages, and we just saw one the other day, $340,000 in a lien that didn't get paid off, and a closing that occurred in 2006. IRS, you went through a nasty divorce. I see this all the time. Nasty divorce, divorce lawyers out there, if you hear this, do a title search before you give property to one of your spouses. We just had this the other day, $500,000, spouse selling a property, encumbered by an IRS lien. But the point I'm trying to make is, you asked how many days it takes to sanitize title for a sale. If you check all the boxes and the municipality's on board, you can probably get it done in 7 business days.
Got it. Okay.
But if you're like 70% of the transactions, the devil is in the things you didn't foresee. It's not the municipality. It's not going to be your lender. It's going to be some issue that's out there, an open permit or a something. And so the point I'm trying to make is,
Do it early.
yeah, we have a product within Title Leap we haven't perfected or we haven't released yet called Title Advance. And so if you're a realtor and you go to a real estate showing with Title Advance, your seller might be interviewing 5 or 6 agents. You would show up with your Title Advance report and go, oh, and by the way, we'd love to have your listing, and I did a little scrub on your title, and you have a PACE loan we're going to have to pay off at closing, and a Y green loan, and we have a couple of other issues, some creditor issue or a name judgments. So if you have a common name, Jim Brown, right? When I go to close a piece of property, they have to release 166 property judgments against my name. But we can do all that with title in advance, and then when we get to the closing, then we can have that beautiful 5-day closing.
Wow.
It's
Fantastic.
a great value add for an agent pulling title early and just seeing what you're up against.
Yeah,
I've had it literally. You're not scrambling now a week before closing and something pops up, Jim. I mean, it's true.
Yeah, my wheels are already spinning because a lot of our
right? That's the way we work.
yeah. Because a lot of clients, depending on the margins and what's going on, that net sheet means a lot.
Sure.
So if they weren't aware of this PACE loan or anything with
I can count on 2 hands in the last month people who told us they didn't have a second mortgage. They said, no, that's an equity line.
Wow.
And so we said, I understand you were told it's an equity line, but it is a recorded mortgage. And they said, okay, well,
Wow.
now all of a sudden, like you said, the deal gets real skinny.
Because I've been on the buy side of a deal where the seller's under contract, unrescindable, and they freak out because they realize what their net is.
Yep.
And sometimes it's way less, maybe underwater. They didn't realize how much the realtor was getting paid.
Yeah, they're going after the real estate commission next.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and then you could get the judgments, right, that linger in the public record. So we're searching the legal description to the property, and if somebody has a judgment, it'll attach the legal. But we're also searching names, and if that person has a name, then that judgment gets attached to the property, and that has to be paid off at sale. Those are things that Title Advance can nip in the bud.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Being ahead of the ball, that's the name of the game.
And there was just one other thing I would like to ask you real quick. So, I didn't know this after being years in the industry. It took a while to learn this. So what I understand, there's the big 4, right, of underwriters. Is that still the case? And so basically, no matter where you go for title, right, it's underwritten by one of 4 underwriters, right?
There are more, but
They're the main ones.
predominantly, yeah.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Do you find any changing in that? Any sea change?
Any
or
movement?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see. So we just signed an agreement with I won't disclose the name, but we just signed an agreement with an underwriter that I think does the best underwriting work in the business by a mile. But they are dragging on technology. I see other underwriters that are gaining market share, whether they have real tech or not. They're advertising their tech and they're picking up realtors by advertising their tech. I'm not saying it's vaporware. I'm saying
Right.
it's just cutting edge and it doesn't work as well as they advertise. They say it's got this capacity, but when you peel back the layers of the onion, you realize that what it can actually do is a lot less than what they're advertising. But it's coming, and so yeah, I see market share going to agencies, underwriters that are advertising technology tools for realtors.
And I think that's kind of where Ryan Poole was going. If you make it more efficient in terms of any clouds on title, the way my realtor brain thinks is that in theory you could reduce premiums because you've reduced risk, right?
That's where we're going.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's where
that's where I see blockchain.
That's
really
where
disrupt-
blockchain-
It's
exactly.
going to disrupt the
I think
title.
the approach to blockchain by the real estate world space may not be the most appropriate way to integrate blockchain into transactions. I have my own theories,
Yeah.
a little radical, but surprise, right?
Exactly.
But I think blockchain will ultimately be where these things transpire. Now, there's going to be a parallel transaction for a while. There's going to be an overlap, so we're going to be tailing out of the public record and we're going to be tailing into blockchain. But just like title insurance is for lenders, blockchain is going to be lender driven.
Yeah.
And so
Interesting.
once we show the value through the introduction of blockchain to lenders, we will be recording simultaneously. So we'll have a transaction that gets recorded in the blockchain. This is my theory. It'll get recorded in the blockchain and it'll get recorded in the public record. But before the transaction, I would imagine a borrower saying to a lender, would you like to pay $3,000 for title insurance or $300? And there's no borrower in the world that's going to insist on paying the higher premium. And so when you're a lender and you have that ability to offer that incentive, that's where I think
it's a big incentive to use that lender too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The lender's going to lever that value prop
As a
to
differentiator.
get borrowers in the door as a differentiator in the market.
Yep.
But it has to be shown to the lender, and honestly, I'm not involved in those conversations. But honestly, I'd be shocked if it hasn't already happened, and there's already inroads, groundwork being laid in that direction, because that's the natural corollary. It's got to go
Interesting.
that way.
Yeah. Fascinating.
We've shared so much. What a value add here having you, Jim, on, and what a
I've learned a ton.
It is, and all our listeners out there getting this tremendous
I'm not
value.
going to get out the door.
I
with
know.
my head the size of that.
So here,
Well, I love this stuff, right?
It is.
I'm
I could talk.
48 I'm 58 years old, and I've been doing this forever. It's all I've ever done is real estate.
It is.
And I love this stuff.
Well, I can tell you just from being in tech and investing in some startups, I was guilty early on in my investing startup career of being involved with a solution looking for a problem. And it was a great.
That's where you don't want to be.
That's where you don't want to be.
Sorry. I didn't want to say that
No,
out loud, but as soon as you said it was a knee jerk.
Exactly. And what I learned very quickly is that was the wrong place to be. And the best companies and are the best service because it's a solution for a big problem. And that's what you guys are doing, which is really exciting. It's really exciting. And then you just identify, like we were discussing now, other inefficiencies and problems in the market. And those are the best ideas.
Yeah.
You serve the most people.
Yeah. No, it's great. We're wrapping this up. We're getting close to 30 minutes. We've had tremendous value here.
Time flies.
Time flies when we're having fun. Is there what other big to kind of, this is the real estate in the digital age, Jim. Any other big disruptions you see coming from tech, not necessarily in title, but in the space for real estate? What do you see as some other big disruptors that are coming down the pipe?
I think that the opportunity to sell property without being in a physical space, as crazy as that sounds, like early in COVID,
Yes.
we had more canceled sales than we were getting new business. And so people were looking to how are we going to make real estate survive? I went to a couple tech shows down in Miami, that RE Tech, we talked about it a little bit. I definitely want to go to some of their shows, that association. And they were showing how people were selling yachts in the AR, VR space without physically going to the yachts. And these are $100 million purchases.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw it, we invested early in, who does the virtual tour? Matterport.
Matterport,
We were
yeah.
offering Matterport tours to realtors at a very discounted rate. The price has since come down, but we were the first to do it. So we had Matterport flow through marketing opportunities, and we were seeing sales happen. And so a big disruptor is going to be the ability to sell confidently, buy and sell property without physically being in the space, and that's inevitable. And the more it gets integrated into the system, it becomes a natural for younger buyers and sellers. I think that's the next big move. And then it's just transaction efficiency.
I'm glad you said that because I just invested in a 360 VR camera, and I learned they did this on construction sites. They put on the hard hat, so the POV is a few inches higher than the eye level, and then when I'm giving it to my agents, recording it, where they would give narration like they would give a showing, where they can point out the attributes and give the actual showing. It's not like the old pick stitches and stuff like that, where you're wandering in a house by yourself. You actually have narration with the agent. So it wasn't cheap, but it's something that I'm investing in because I think it's very interesting. And for example, if my client flew in and they have a short amount of time, imagine if I could go through 10 homes in my office and they're like, yeah, I don't like the master over there. I don't like the step down here. That we wouldn't have seen in the pictures. Yeah. And I can narrow it down potentially to 4
Now
homes.
you're not wasting your time on buyers who are going to walk in the door for a second and go, oh, that doesn't work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, it just makes it efficient for not only me, but my agents and the clients. So it's interesting. And then VR real estate, super interesting to me too. I mean, I think something like 200 million transacted last year in the metaverse, and they're projecting it to double this year. So, I tell people, some people respond to that. They're like, oh, well, I think it's a bubble. I go, well, remember, .coms were a bubble. Right. They became a thing. Right. Real estate have bubbles.
It's a thing.
Yeah, just because there's bubbles doesn't mean it's not going to be a thing.
So I saw some really interesting tech. So when you do an open house, sometimes cool dynamics arise where you have people frothy about the property, and then you have another person in the room frothy about the property, and that little dynamic develops that realtors love.
It's why auctions work, right? It's the competition.
It's like blood in the water if you're a spear fisherman.
Yeah.
So what I saw was they were doing digital VR
Like
open houses.
Like a live virtual open house.
Yep. And
so that's something that we want to develop.
So agents were coming to the buyers were coming to the open house. An agent was walking around. They had the helmet on, and they're walking around the property. And as goofy as it might look today, tomorrow it's going to be commonplace.
Yeah.
And so they're walking around the property, and the buyers could hear each other, and they could hear the realtors' responses. And they're, oh, let's go look at the bathroom again. And no, send them upstairs. And they were getting all excited. And there's something that happens online, and we've all seen it kind of in a negative way where people will say things they wouldn't say otherwise. But in a positive way, the same thing happens. And so people come out of there, they get a little more aggressive. They come out of their shell, and sure enough, that thing's under contract.
Wow. Fascinating.
It is.
That's
I mean, that's something that I've really leaned into with on Real Trade, because we do allow, the listing agent to own their own listings. So we could be one of the few platforms to offer that.
Yeah.
I would like to see a scenario where, and this is just something I haven't thought in depth about, but where you have, it's almost like an auction, but it's not. And so you have a platform where you can go into, and you're going through this virtual open house, and it's live, and on your app, on your side of the app, on the buyer's side of the app, there's just a couple of inputs, not a contract.
Yeah.
Just a couple of inputs. And then they can
view the properties.
So when I say inputs, there's price, there's closing date, there's an inspection period.
The meat and potatoes of the deal.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just those 4 elements. And then you walk out of that thing, that seller's agent drafts the contract, circulates it digitally, and
it's like a CTS, contract to sale, right?
like a contract to sale.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, because the contract to leases sometimes. Well, we won't go in the weeds with that.
We won't
yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
I'm
Anyway.
violently. They threw me off the contract drafting committee at the Florida Association and Bar and Florida Realtors because I was pretty outspoken about the contract for lease. But anyways, yeah, it's a bare bones. Anybody can understand it. Like I said, the 4 basic elements. You're in this virtual showing. You communicate what you want to have drafted into the contract. They come up with the standards for the rest of the transaction. And
Wow.
That's where it's going.
That's pretty
I
eye-opening.
mean, it is. And you think about opening this up, too, because there's so many other people that want to invest in United States real estate than just USA people. I mean, there's a lot of foreigners. I mean, it's one of the best investments, in history.
South America.
I know. So, no, it's there. I'd
Wow.
love to work on that.
That's so fascinating.
So, excellent. Wow, what's some great...
I could do this for hours.
I know, we could.
We'll have to do it again.
All right, so let's wrap this up. I mean, it's been amazing value. Like I said, I hope the listeners are getting tremendous value. And you're the consummate entrepreneur, Jim. You're one person I really look up to. You've started all these amazing companies. You're on the cutting edge. To put a bow on this, what is one good tip to the listener out there, a new entrepreneur, getting into real estate, getting into tech, whatever they're getting into, what would be something you want to leave them with?
So since we've had some projects that have moved the needle in certain spaces, people come to me and they say, I have an idea, but they do exactly what you said. They have this solution looking for a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the most valuable thing you can do is 2 things. Look for the problem and create the solution. But then it's not just, there's lots of great ideas out there. Somebody told me a long time ago that I thought I was unique because I had great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm learning, thanks to Alex and the rest of the team, it's production. That's the hard part, right? So everybody has a great idea. You have to be able to move the needle consistently for long periods of time, little advances to get this stuff done. Mm-hmm. So 2 words of advice: look for a problem. Don't look for a solution, looking for a problem, but you have to be able to produce the production element, the ability to stick with it. You're saying how much you admire what we're doing. I thoroughly admire the limb you're going out on with Real Trade. I think it's amazing. I think Real Trade is the future. I think that is a solution to a huge problem. If you're a realtor trying to create a lasting brand, we're working on another business model in my office for somebody that has an out-of-the-box disruptor brokerage concept that would meld perfectly with Real Trade. I think it's those kinds of things that get cultivated from inside, and we see the pain. You see these realtors spending so much money on these digital platforms. There's got to be a better way to build a realtor brand, and the brand is that agent's.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I believe that's the future. It's not the brokerage.
I believe that with all my heart. Real Trade is the future.
It is.
I believe that with all my heart.
Wow, thanks, Jim. Thanks for saying that.
That's fantastic. Well, you want to tell the audience how they can find you, social media, anything, Title Leap?
TitleLeap.com, JamesBrownLaw.com, NewPathTitle.com.
I love it, man.
He's got a big CV.
amazing.
I love it. I love it.
No, it is. Get connected, and obviously, you're on Real Trade. Easiest way to connect you on Real Trade, too.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, thank you so
I'm
much.
so honored to be like one of the early adopters of Real Trade because I've seen people take advantage of spaces that explode getting in early, and I genuinely believe that's where you're at.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, we really appreciate it. Thank you for the time, all of the insight, all the value to the audience. And as always, follow us, the Retta Podcast, all social handles, the Retta Podcast at gmail.com. Smash that like, subscribe button, and thank you very much. Bye, guys.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it.